No, Slick and Shiny tongue-in-cheek productions once more takes you back to the days of yesteryear in Herminie. And we're going to get a look at things there. This is present tense. I'm simply pointing out the difference between the houses that were built for the mine and the rest of the town. See, these down here, the mine was down here. These were all company houses. You could call it the coal patch. And when you look at this down here and compare it to the rest of the town, you can see it's very different. You see this has a regularity to it and a kind of regimentation in a way. You can see this more obviously in 1939 photograph. That was 1 year after the mine shut down. But right here, what we're looking at, these are the mine houses, the duplexes built by Ocean Coal Company. This is the rest of the town. See how different that looks? And there was a kind of regimentation, or you might call it social engineering, trying to control people. And that became most obvious when there would be a strike. There was a strike in 1910, and you'll notice that Ocean Coal Company had their iron and coal police available, and they brought them in. These guys were in many cases little more than basic thugs wearing a badge and carrying a gun. They came in and threw all the strikers out of their houses. And you have a wife and kids, too bad, buddy, you get the hell out, you're striking. And that's what happened. They threw these people out. The union did put up tent cities for them in places where they could live in tents, which was not very good when the weather got cold. The strike this time in 1910 didn't work out too well for the strikers. They didn't get what they wanted. They wanted to have union representation. But then again, in 1922, there was another strike, and they did that time succeed in getting what they wanted, that they could join the union. Now, these buildings were here. This shot was taken about 6 years ago, 2014. These two buildings were left from the mine. This was the powerhouse. This was the supply house. This is the same shot, same buildings from up in the air last year, 2019. And we're going to see this building, which was the supply house. We're going to see it down on the ground. You can see it's in a rather damaged condition, and we can look at it when it looks better. For a good number of years, this building was used as a factory to produce model railroad trains and the accessories for model railroads and parts for them. That was the outfit that ran that factory. And I'm not sure of a good pronunciation. I'll just say Owl Industries, and if somebody knows better, they could help me with the pronunciation. This is a trade fair that they were at. Carl C. Owl, A-U-E-L, ran the outfit. This is that building that was used to make the model railroads. In the background, you can see what was the powerhouse of the mine. This is, you can see a more complete shot of the powerhouse. And none of this photography is very good. You know, sometimes I just have what I have. The next thing I'll show you will be mapping of the powerhouse here. But what will not show up in the powerhouse will be the supply house, because it was not there in 1916 when this map was made. Right here, that was the powerhouse for the mine. Right over here was the supply house. That was that brick house, that brick building that I showed you. And it won't be there for a couple more years, as this map dates from 1916. Other things of interest, here's the railroad station. Up here you have the company store, which was built about 1910. Beside the company store, you had another small building, which was the post office. These buildings were built by the company, the coal company, Ocean Coal. Here they are, not too long after they were built. This is the company store. This was the post office. And you can see the street hasn't even been paved yet. And you can see these houses. There's a rather great uniformity of architecture there, almost like military barracks. This is an older shot. It was called Eureka Store. And at this point, the flat roof has been replaced by this hip roof. And I never thought personally that flat roofs were a good idea. If you've ever had to repair one, you'd come to appreciate slanted roofs. The post office was in operation. Another incarnation of that building was as Bill's Dandy Dollar. It was a nice brick building, it still is, and that's the building that was the post office. I believe that's a more recent photo, looking down the street on Sewickley Avenue. This right here is what we were looking at. This is Sewickley Avenue. This is the company store, was the company store, was the post office. These are mostly mercantile ventures, stores that sprung up on Sewickley Avenue. You'd be surprised to know that in 1916 there were 2 movie houses along this row in Herminie. On the catty corner, diagonally across from the company store, was another store right here. This building right here. We're going to get a look at that. This was most likely in the 1930s, judging from the cars. I've actually ridden in old cars like that. Uncle Ad used to have an old 38 Oldsmobile. I don't know for sure what that was, but I could tell the vintage. Now we're going to see that same corner today. It's the same building. We'll go back. That's what it looked like, and that's it today. It's surprising how buildings get modified, shall we say. This is also Sewickley Avenue in the 1930s. You can look at these cars and you can tell that it's either the 30s or the early 40s. I would guess the 1930s because I know there were a number of photos shot in Herminie in the 30s. There were a number of Slovenians that moved to Herminie, and they had their own club room, you know, their own place where they could go and, you know, meet one another. SNPJ, the place where people who came from Slovenia would greet one another and, you know, have a place to get together. Many of the Slovenians that came to Herminie came from an area where there were a lot of coal mines. So it was natural for them to, you know, gravitate toward a place where mining was done. They were familiar with that. Now, we've come to the end of this one. I think I'll do one more on Herminie, and I'll say so long until we meet again, and see you later. Bye now.